There are a lot of great actors in Hollywood, and every one of them has their own way of bringing a character to life. But one style always gets talked about more than the others: method acting. That's when an actor completely becomes the character for the sake of psychological realism. Some of the greatest actors ever would adopt this style. Marlon Brando, Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale are all well-known method actors that have gone to insane lengths to stay in character even when the cameras aren't rolling. But when I think about method actors, often the first thing that comes to mind for me is the nightmare behind-the-scenes stories from the Men on the Moon film, where Jim Carrey apparently refused to break character the entire shoot and everybody had to refer to him as Andy Kaufman. How he would antagonize Jerry Lawler on set so much that Jerry felt the need to pay him back.
That was my revenge on Jim Carrey. During the film of this movie, he somehow in his mind thought that Andy and I just really hated each other. So he just did everything that he could think of during the filming of this movie to antagonize me and make my life a living whatever.
Or how about the stories about Robert De Niro taking things so far during the production of Angel Heart that it caused tension with his co-star Mickey Rourke?
When De Niro and I worked together, it didn't go very good. He wanted me to bend down and kiss his ass, and he met the wrong guy. He's a and a crybaby. No, he's a and he kept crying about what I was doing. He bitched a little too much. I looked at him straight in the eyes. Listen, you ain't been where I've been. You haven't walked in my shoes. There's no way you're gonna win this.
Then I remember the first time I ever heard about method acting as a kid. It was after I watched Casualties of War and found out that Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox supposedly couldn't stand each other during filming. I remember hearing stories that Penn stayed in character the entire time and made life miserable for Fox because he wanted the hostility between their characters to feel real on screen. What's funny is that I heard this for years, way before De Palma confirmed it in his documentary.
There was a moment in the movie where Michael hits Clark with a shovel, and Sean's kind of taunting him, with that wise-ass look he's got. And we did a couple of takes, and then Sean walked up to Michael J. and knocked him to the ground. Just knocked him down. And I thought Michael was going to kill him. And then we shot the scene. It did bring something out in Michael that he was having some difficulty getting to. And then when he whispers to him when he leaves, about payback, I think he whispered once to him, television actor. Good old Sean, very exciting to work with.
That got me wondering if Sean Penn was always like that. So I started going back through his filmography, looking at some of his early work, and I came across a movie I hadn't seen in years. Bad Boys. No, not the Bad Boys movies with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. The original, the 1983 prison drama starring Sean Penn and Issa Morales. When I was a kid, this movie used to constantly play on basic cable, which is kind of insane when you think about what the film is actually about. Directed by Rick Rosenthal, the same guy who brought us the original Halloween 2, Bad Boys tells the story of Mick O'Brien, a troubled teenager growing up in the slums of Chicago. One night, his life changes forever after a robbery scheme against a rival gang goes horribly wrong, and Mick accidentally runs over the rival leader's little brother. He's arrested and sentenced to a brutal juvenile correctional facility where survival becomes a daily war. Meantime, his girlfriend JC, played by Ali Sheedy, has to deal with the ramifications of his actions outside as O'Brien's rival, Paco, played by Issa Morales, plots to take his revenge out on her. Now, if you haven't seen Bad Boys, I suggest you pause this video, find the film, watch it, and then come back over here because we're going to get into some spoilers up ahead. The film opens with a car pulling up to a red light at night. Inside sits a middle-aged woman. A superimposed card earlier informed us that we were in Chicago, Illinois. Well, it's nice to see things haven't changed much in Chicago in 40 years. A young man leans in and snatches the woman's purse from the passenger seat. He then scurries off, bumping into people. A bystander notices the crime and runs after the thief. The man chases the thief into a dark alleyway, and then the man finds the woman's purse, and as he bends down to recover it, he's attacked. The attacker then takes the man's wallet and steals his money too. This is when we get a good look at our robber, and his name is Mick O'Brien, our lead. We are then introduced to Paco, played by Issa Morales, as his crew entered his apartment and display a suitcase filled with drugs. How did they get the drugs? Did they buy it? Was it fronted to them? Did they get it on consignment? Well, we don't know and we never find out, but all we do know is that Paco believes that him and his friends are about to be rich. We then see O'Brien buying an illegal pistol with the money he stole. And this is when we get a glimpse of both of our boys' home lives, as O'Brien goes home to a broken home, basically with a single mother. And we know she's a single mother because O'Brien knocks on the bathroom door and she says she's with a friend. So his father's not in the picture. And on the other hand, you have Paco, who has a mother who's worries about her son, but knows she can't control him, but just hopes he doesn't do anything too crazy. But she just knows that she doesn't want her younger son to follow in his big brother's footsteps. Paco and his crew go to show this black kid the briefcase and arrange a sales price for it. And it looks like the kid is trying to set Paco up. Now this I truly don't understand. The guy just set you up. He tried to rob you. And what do? What do you say? You tell him,
You pull any shit like this Saturday night, I swear to God.
in the far distance in the shadows, hovering over them, stands Vengeance, watching, waiting, and... Is that Cameron Fry?
Fry.
So I guess now we know what happened to him when his dad found out he destroyed the Ferrari. The next day at school, Cameron tells O'Brien what Paco and his crew are up to, and that's when they decide they're going to steal the drugs for themselves. All of a sudden, Paco approaches O'Brien's girlfriend, JC, played by Ali Sheedy. Paco makes a snarky comment to O'Brien about how he used to date JC, and the two almost get into a fight when Cameron pulls O'Brien back. We then get a post-coitus scene between O'Brien and JC. She asks O'Brien what Cameron, whose real name in the film is Carl, so we're going to refer to him as Carl from now on, was telling him back at school, and O'Brien lies to her and tells her nothing. She then tells him that one day he's going to get busted, and O'Brien says, big deal, all they do is lock him up for a short period of time, call his mother, feed him when she doesn't answer, and then wait until she gets there, if not, just let him go. Again, it sounds like not much has changed in 40 years. Anyway, she tells him that she had a dream that he died. He's listening to her and just looking at her like,
She's retarded.
he tells her nothing's gonna happen, and then he leaves. Later on, Carl and O'Brien are getting ready to stick up Paco and his crew. We can see that Carl's nervous about doing this. O'Brien calms him down. Well, first, he yells at him, then he calms him down and assures him that no one is going to get hurt.
You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why? You sure about that? You sure about that's not why?
We see that Carl is a professional at stealing cars as they head off to perform the heist. Back at one of Paco's acquaintances' house, Paco and his crew are counting their drugs and I guess calculating what to charge. That's when Paco's little brother enters the room and Paco asks surprised and asks him what he's doing there. And the little brother told him you promised him that he'd be able to hang out with him tonight. And Paco says, not tonight. I got important business. I can't have you here. You have to go home. We then cut to some secret lair somewhere and see the guys that tried to jack the drugs from Paco yesterday appear to be getting ready to do it again. I mean, honestly, he couldn't find another buyer? I mean, what is this? Anyway, Carl and O'Brien stake out Paco's crew hangout when they spot Paco's little brother exiting the building. Shortly after, Paco and his crew exit the building, and O'Brien and Carl start to follow them. The next few moments are a little bit intense as we see that not only are Carl and O'Brien following Paco and his crew, but the black crew that were planned to set up Paco and steal the drugs from him are in a car not far behind. Carl pulls up behind Paco and O'Brien steps out. The black crew spots O'Brien as O'Brien approaches Paco. They see the gun. One of their members pops out of the car, chases after O'Brien, pulls out a shotgun, and as he's about to blast, Carl screams out to O'Brien. O'Brien turns around and ducks real quick, and one of Paco's crew members gets blasted through a department store window. Now all hell breaks loose. The black crew step out of the vehicle and start firing at Paco, who flees the scene. Carl pops out of the car and takes out one of the crew members, and now we have a gunfight, but Carl gets taken out. O'Brien screams as the black crew member uses this opportunity to grab one of their other friends who Carl shot earlier up and put him in the car and drive away. O'Brien shoots at them as they flee and then runs up over to Carl to see if he's okay. As the sirens ring closer, he then jumps in the vehicle and flees. Unfortunately, he was a little bit too late making his escape as the cops are hot on his trail. Now we get an intense car chase, and during the mayhem, O'Brien manages to toss the gun he was carrying. As he's about to hit an intersection, another police vehicle in front of him swerves into his lane. O'Brien screams and quickly turns the steering wheel to his vehicle to avoid crashing into the police car when O'Brien smashes into Paco's brother, killing him. And for some reason, the car explodes. O'Brien is sentenced to serve time at Rainford Juvenile Correctional Facility for vehicular manslaughter. He isn't given years or months. We actually only hear the judge say that he has to serve time until he can prove that he no longer has a sociopathic personality. Basically, he could be released if it's determined his behavior has improved. When I first heard this, I thought it was wild, but then I remember today we have juveniles committing crime and they're being released the same day. So it's not that crazy. And supposedly this was actually an accurate and realistic portrayal of the judicial system for juveniles at the time. Once inside, O'Brien realizes that his whole world is different now. As he enters the cell block, the other prisoners welcome him by spitting on his face. While doing research for this film, I discovered Sean Penn actually told the extras in the prison to spit on his face. He didn't want fake spit. And most of the prisoners in the film are actually real prisoners, not hired professional extras. Supposedly the director wanted to heighten the tension by having real prisoners on set. Anyway, after everyone spits on O'Brien's face, he makes his way to his new home and meets his new cellmate, Horowitz. On the outside, Paco promises his mother that he will get revenge for the death of his brother. His mother slaps him in the face and tells him that that's not going to bring him back, and Paco says it doesn't matter, that he has to do it. Later on, O'Brien is introduced to the inmates who run the cell block. One of the inmates is named Viking and is played by Clancy Brown, who will later go on to be the prison guard in Shawshank Redemption and basically portray a bad guy in almost every single film he's ever done. We're also introduced to his sidekick, Tweety. They both already don't like O'Brien, and not for any particular reason other than he's the new guy. For the next few months, O'Brien is subjected to harassment by both Tweety and Viking, but O'Brien doesn't retaliate. He just wants to keep his head down and do his time, but Viking and Tweety have a hard-on for him, giving him all the terrible chores around in the prison. Then on the outside, we see all the emotional pain O'Brien's actions have had on JC. We then meet Ramon Herrera, played by Rini Santoni, who's a phenomenal actor. He's been in a bunch of things. You've definitely seen his face before, and he passed away in 2020, so rest in peace. But anyway, he's kind of a guidance counselor or parole officer or prison guard. I don't know. They don't really say, or at least I just don't remember. But he's one of the people in the prison that cracks through O'Brien's shell. He tells O'Brien that it doesn't matter if it was an accident that caused the death of Paco's brother, because O'Brien was on his way to commit murder anyway, or worse. He basically becomes O'Brien's mentor or like father figure in the prison. In the meantime, Paco's out looking for revenge. He targets the guy who murdered one of his crew members and takes him out. On another day back in the prison, Tweety walks into the room of a kid O'Brien entered the cell block with originally. He closes the door behind him and... oh hell no! Yes, Tweety grapes him, but as Tweety exits the kid's room, the kid follows back with a shank and tries to attack Tweety. Unfortunately, the kid was a little bit too small, and Tweety manhandles him, and then... After witnessing this, O'Brien realizes maybe he might be next. Everyone's interrogated, but no one rats. Viking and Tweety start asking O'Brien questions about what he's told the warden. They're acting tough, but they're really scared, and O'Brien has had enough of their crap. O'Brien starts to antagonize them. Later that night, O'Brien sees Viking and Tweety watching him. He knows they're going to try something tonight, but he already has a plan. This is when Horowitz tells O'Brien that he'll stay and help, and O'Brien tells him that he's got it and to leave. Horowitz exits the room, and Viking and Tweety enter, and that's when O'Brien goes ham on them. I remember this scene vividly as a kid. I don't know, I loved it. And I ended up doing something similar to what O'Brien does here to one of my arch nemesis when I was around 8 years old. But anyway, this is a badass scene. I remember I loved it as a kid. O'Brien breaks Viking's nose. He beats the crap out of Tweety and Viking, so much so that the other prisoners are cheering him on. But then he gets tackled by the prison guards and put in solitary confinement. Once O'Brien's released from the hole, Horowitz tells him that now he has the power, that he's the one in charge, and that everybody knows it. O'Brien now starts delegating the chores in the prison, giving all the worst jobs to Viking and Tweety. While things may be going peachy for O'Brien, Viking is still picking on Horowitz for being Jewish, but Horowitz isn't a pushover, and he's kind of a bit of a hothead, and he takes matters into his own hands. And because O'Brien beat the crap out of him and everybody else in the prison now think Viking is a bitch. So he beats the crap out of Viking himself. He causes such a scene he ends up getting thrown in the hole. This is when we discover that Horowitz is kind of claustrophobic and hates being put in the hole. In the meantime, outside, we follow JC one night as she's returning home. It's already a dangerous night, being that it's Chicago in the middle of the night and she's a single female walking home alone. But let's add something else to the mix, and that's the fact that Paco's on the prowl with a fellow gang member of his. Paco feels like O'Brien took something he loved, his little brother, so he's going to take something he knows O'Brien loves, and that's JC. Paco and his crew member grab JC and then they grape her. And it's so brutal and so raw and so disturbing. And then Paco removes his mask, showing her who he is, letting her know that it's him doing this to let she knows why he's doing this, that it's all because of O'Brien. She begs for her life, but he doesn't care. After he's done, he takes his gun and he's about to shoot her when, luckily, the cops show up and arrest them. Ramon tells O'Brien what happened to JC, and he just stands there in shock. Ramon asks him how he's feeling and what he's feeling, and he tells him he just feels like crying. Ramon tells him it's fine for him to cry, but doesn't seem like O'Brien can at this particular moment. JC then identifies Paco at the police station, and this was wild too. They actually get to see their accuser. No two-way mirror, nothing. And supposedly, this is actually how it used to happen too. Back at the prison, Horowitz is released and tells O'Brien he's really sorry about what happened to JC. O'Brien tells him that he needs to see her, but Horowitz tells him they're never gonna let that happen. And O'Brien says he's not asking. And that's when they both decide to plan this elaborate escape. While Tweety gets released, Horowitz uses this as the right opportunity to pour some acid on the fence on a special section where they plan to make their escape. The next day, the acid has taken effect. They kick in the fence and manage to escape the prison. This is a fun little scene with this little chase scene because some of the prison guards notice and they chase them down. O'Brien and Horowitz manage to escape and almost get away with it, but Horowitz gets stuck in some barbed wire, and as O'Brien's trying to help him, Horowitz tells him to go, leave, because if they both get caught, it wasn't worth anything, and he better go see JC if he's gonna get caught. And O'Brien runs. As O'Brien runs and makes it away, the prison guards catch him, and this one prison guard gives him the biggest beating ever. This guy hates Horowitz and actually absolutely demolished him, as so much so that the other prison guard was trying to pull him off to stop him from beating Horowitz to death. It was crazy. Horowitz is an asshole, but he did not deserve this kind of beatdown. O'Brien returns to JC's home and goes upstairs to see her. Herrera and some Chicago PD officers are sitting outside in a car, and they exit and watch O'Brien go in and let him. Herrera then goes upstairs and tells O'Brien that it's time to leave, giving them a few moments together. On the way back to the prison, Herrera takes O'Brien to a real prison for adults. He tells him that this is where O'Brien's going to end up. He also says, life's a choice, and exits the scene. O'Brien just takes it all in. Once they return, the warden tells O'Brien that normally he would give him an additional 6 months for escaping, but he's going to let it slide. He heard O'Brien was doing good so far, and he knows why O'Brien left to see JC. He says he's doing this one favor for him and to not make him look like a fool. He then tells O'Brien that he's supposed to be an example for the other guys. O'Brien then goes to the hospital wing to see Horowitz, and damn! Yeah, that prison guard jacked him up. Herrera then tells O'Brien that because there isn't enough space at the other cell blocks, that Paco Marino was coming to his cell block. He tells me he's got 3 months till he's released, and he doesn't want him to screw it up, and that he's going to try everything he possibly can to get Paco out of the cell block as fast as possible. O'Brien says he just wants to keep his head down and do his time and get back to JC. Once inside, Paco gets the same treatment as O'Brien. All the prisoners spit on his face, and I found out that the director asked Isai Morales to let them spit on his face, and he didn't want them to. He wanted paid extras to do it. After telling him, hey, Sean Penn did it, he's like, okay, they could do it, but they have to brush their teeth and gargle with mouthwash. And I don't know how I feel about this, if this type of method acting was really worth it to me. I guess it just shows that he's willing to degrade himself, Sean Penn, by letting all those guys spit on him. And maybe that has an effect on him emotionally being angry and then later being disgusted and upset. I can see how that could work. But it works for Isai Morales too, in a sense, because he got spit on and you could see the actual disgust in his face when they're spitting on him. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, for the rest of the film, Paco is making friends with Viking and anyone else that hates O'Brien. He antagonizes him constantly, looking for a fight endlessly. It gets so out of hand one day, O'Brien even tells him to remember that the reason his brother is dead is because of him, because he wasn't there to take care of him. Viking and Paco have minor beef about who's going to actually take out O'Brien. Viking feels like he's owed first because O'Brien disfigured his face, and Paco said, he killed my brother, like I'm getting him first, after Viking showed him a shank that he had made. Everybody in the prison knows about this feud between O'Brien and Paco, and they start taking bets, and they're all betting that Paco's gonna kill O'Brien. Horowitz tells O'Brien what's going on, and O'Brien playfully asks, who do you have? And he says, you, of course. But O'Brien says, I'm not doing anything, I'm not getting in any problems, I just wanna leave. Horowitz decides to take things into his own hands, and he rigs a radio with something. Viking finds the radio and he plays it and he's having himself a good time when all of a sudden it explodes. Horowitz takes full responsibility, even confessing to how he did it. The warden tells him that he's sending him to the hole, and we all know that Horowitz is claustrophobic, so he flips out and destroys everything in the warden's office. He's then restrained, and this is the last time we see him. The warden then tells Herrera that he's transferring Paco out of the cell block tomorrow morning. One of O'Brien's enemies hears this and tells Paco. Another tells O'Brien. Now they both know if Paco's only chance or opportunity to do anything is tonight. Later that night, Paco devises a master plan. As Herrera is taking over the night shift, he sees Paco on the floor crawling and crying. He's claiming that his appendix broke. As Herrera goes to check on Paco, Paco attacks him with a lead pipe. He then drags him into the cage, cuts the phone cord, and then steals his keys and locks him inside his office in the cage. Paco then enters O'Brien's cell, but O'Brien was already ready for him and he's hiding in the corner and he starts attacking him. And now we get an intense fight. A long and intense fight. None of the prisoners get involved. They're all just board up the entrance so nobody else could get in and stop the fight, and they start cheering. The fight goes on for some time while both guys are getting bloody and messy and stabbed all over. Paco loses his shank while the two guys are now on the floor fighting each other. The fight goes on for some time and then all of a sudden crawls to a halt. And literally, I mean crawls to a halt as both men are on the floor fighting each other, trying to grab the shank. Paco ends up being the first one to grab it and stabs O'Brien in the leg. O'Brien screams, grabs the shank that's in his leg, pulls it out, turns over and gets on top of Paco. Paco looks dazed. He looks out. O'Brien raises the shank above his head as everybody's chanting for O'Brien to do it, to do it. O'Brien just stands there and then he slams it down and everybody stays quiet and everybody's looking shocked and confused. And then all the prisoners start to walk away slowly. Herrera and the warden are locked out. They're watching this and they just put their heads down. Some of the other officers don't even bother to attend. They think the worst has possibly happened. And then when we look back, we see that O'Brien didn't do it. He didn't kill Paco, as the shank is embedded in the floor next to Paco's head. He then drags Paco all the way over to the warden and to Herrera. O'Brien looks at Herrera and they both lock eyes, and it's almost as if Herrera is looking at O'Brien and saying, "I'm proud of you, kid." And Penn looking back at him saying, "I know." And as O'Brien limps back to his room, he starts to break down and cry uncontrollably. And the movie ends. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this ending either. I mean, I'd rather see him and JC get together, but instead what we got was the traditional O'Brien made the correct moral decision at the end of the film. And he's not a sociopath. He doesn't want to end up in jail. He no longer wants to be a bad boy, so to speak. Again, I'm not a fan of this ending, but the rest of the film is so strong that this really doesn't take away much from the entire film. This is, I believe, Clancy Brown and Ali Sheedy's first major film roles, and they did a fantastic job. Esai Morales is an actor I never really cared for, and in this film, I became invested in him as a character. Honestly, Paco isn't the worst one until he grapes JC. Then he's irredeemable, because O'Brien didn't try to purposely kill Paco's brother, but Paco went out there to purposely grape and hurt and kill JC. So that's when he becomes technically the worst one that you don't care for anymore. But the real question is, did method acting help Sean Penn give a better performance? And I don't know. Yes? I mean, I thought he did a great job in the film. He doesn't really have huge monologues, but he still manages to steal the scene every time he's in it and draw you in just with his eyes or his facial expressions. So at the end of the day, if the actor believes his method helps him bring the character more to life, then we should probably take their word for it. At least if it's Sean Penn's, whose filmography speaks for itself. But all in all, I think Bad Boys is an awesome film, and even though the subject matter is dark and bleak, the film still manages to be entertaining and fun. So I'm going to give Bad Boys 4 out of 5 stars just because I didn't like the ending. But anyway, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about Bad Boys and what do you think about Sean Penn as an actor in general. I actually don't like Sean Penn at all, but I think he's a great actor. And I'd like to know what you guys think. Anyway, remember, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're new here, and I will talk to you guys next time. Peace.